I just got tired of listening to the lies that were being spewed about me.
That's Myra Crosby, the dismissed juror from Alex Murdaugh's double murder trial, who became known as the Egg Lady. She's speaking about the case. Do you believe the state met its burden?
I do not.
Myra Crosby is telling all in a new book and to me about her removal from the jury and why she says she doesn't believe the trial was fair.
The way that I was dismissed was very sketchy.
Welcome to Crime Fix. I'm Angenette Levy. It's been more than a year since a jury in Colleton County, South Carolina, found Alex Murdaugh guilty of murdering his wife Maggie and his son Paul. It was South Carolina's trial of the century. The jury deliberated for 3 hours after hearing 6 weeks of testimony. And since then, a whole lot has happened. There have been allegations of jury tampering made by Murdaugh's defense against Clerk of Court Becky Hill.
You asked her questions before she was even examined by the judge, did you not?
Your Honor, I did not ask her any questions.
Now, that was from a hearing on the jury tampering claims earlier this year with retired Supreme Court Justice Jean Toll questioning Becky Hill and the jurors who deliberated and one alternate juror. Despite some jurors saying they heard Hill make comments about Alex Murdaugh during the trial, they said it didn't impact their verdict. At least one said that she thought it did impact her verdict.
I find that the clerk of court is not completely credible as a witness. Ms. Hill was attracted by the siren call of celebrity, and I find the defendant's motion for a new trial on the factual record before me must be denied.
Now, one juror who was not questioned during that hearing in January, Juror 785, she was removed from the jury after the state's closing argument.
I have reviewed everything, including statements given by individuals and recorded interviews, and concluded that despite my order to not discuss the case with anyone, that intentionally or unintentionally you've had some discussions with some folks not on the jury, and which is going to require me to remove you from the jury. You have been a by all accounts, great juror and smiled consistently and have seemingly been attentive to the case and performed well. And I'm sure that with all the time you've invested in it, you probably hate not to continue, or maybe you're ready to go. I don't know. But I certainly want to thank you for your service. I'm not suggesting that you intentionally did anything wrong.
Judge Newman said he determined that the juror had discussed the case in violation of his order against doing so. Juror 785 famously became known as the Egg Lady. I even called her the Egg Lady after this happened.
What do you have in there?
A dozen eggs.
Say it again?
A dozen eggs.
A dozen eggs.
Yeah, one of the other.
So, Mr. Bailiff, can you retrieve from the jury room her dozen eggs, her purse, and what else? And a bottle of water.
Now, Murdaugh's lawyers contend that Clerk of Court Becky Hill, who has since resigned and is under criminal investigation and faces a long list of ethics complaints, launched a campaign to remove the Egg Lady from the jury. Murdaugh's appeal is now with the South Carolina Supreme Court, which will consider the jury tampering issue. Joining me is the juror who became known as only the Egg Lady. That's what we knew her as for many months. Now we can tell you her name is Myra Crosby. Myra, thanks for coming on. First of all, tell us, why are you speaking out now? You've decided to reveal yourself to the world.
That's a tough decision. I wanted to be left alone in the beginning, but it never stopped, and people continued to say that I had done wrong. And all I've ever said from day one is I wanted Alex Murdaugh to have a fair trial. And the way that this trial went, it was far from fair. And I just got tired of listening to the lies that were being spewed about me.
Why do you think the trial was not fair?
Well, the way that I was dismissed was very sketchy. The fact that the clerk came into the jury room on multiple occasions and basically gave us her opinion, I don't think that was fair at all. But I don't think that should have been part of the, what's the word? Part of the trial. I think that the clerk had a job to do, and I think she overstepped her boundaries, and I don't think that it was investigated enough as what was done to me.
Now, Myra Crosby, when we spoke, said that Becky Hill first asked her about a Facebook post that Hill claimed was posted by Crosby's ex-husband that said that she had been talking about the trial.
Our bailiff came into the jury room and told me that the clerk needed to speak with me. And he came in, got me, and took me into an office. And that would be where the fake Facebook post came in. And she questioned me about having an ex-husband and had I been drinking with him, because she was made aware of a Facebook post that I was supposedly drinking with him, and offered an opinion on the trial. And I told her that did not happen. I haven't seen him in over 10 years. So I wanted to see the post. She couldn't show me the post, but she said she would have one of her techie clerks look into it and she would get back with me.
So you were confronted about a Facebook post that was allegedly from your ex-husband who you hadn't seen in years, but then you were never shown the post.
She couldn't, or I don't know if she couldn't find it or didn't have it or what, but she never showed me a post. And then she asked me, well, do you have an opinion on the trial? And I told her I hadn't heard enough. I wasn't decided. I mean, we weren't even, into all of the trial yet.
The Murdaugh case is, of course, full of lawyers. Even the egg lady, Myra Crosby, has a lawyer, and you never know when you might need one. Morgan & Morgan has more than 1,000 attorneys that you may want in your corner if you are ever injured. Morgan & Morgan has won several multi-million-dollar verdicts and settlements recently for victims who were in life-altering car crashes, all of which were considerably higher than the highest insurance company offer. Starting a claim takes 8 clicks or less, and it can all be done from your smartphone. And there are no upfront fees. You only pay them if you win. So if you are hurt, you can easily start a claim in 8 clicks or less at forthepeople.com/crimefix. Now, there was a time toward the end of the trial when the prosecution and the defense teams were staying after hours for meetings with Judge Newman in his chambers. And at the time, none of us really knew what was going on, and no one would tell us. Afterwards, we found out that Myra Crosby was being questioned by Judge Newman and the attorneys.
The first time that I was called back there, I thought, because Becky had pulled me that day, and then I had asked to speak with her again later before our break. Or after our break, but I thought I was being pulled into his office about a Facebook post.
And then what happened?
I told the judge the same thing I told Becky, is I haven't seen my ex-husband in years. I don't talk to him. I don't drink with him. If he posted on Facebook, I never saw it. He was blocked on my page. And at the time, my Facebook page I was in Facebook jail. So nobody would question why I wasn't posting, because generally I post something positive daily, and I didn't during the time of the trial because I didn't want anybody questioning that.
Becky Hill would later say that Facebook post was deleted. Myra Crosby's ex-husband signed a sworn affidavit months after the trial denying that he ever wrote the post in question. Your ex-husband said that he didn't post that post.
He did not. And apparently they have went through his phone, his laptop, and the post was never made. And it's pretty convenient that she found an apology post that was dated prior to her saying she saw the original post.
The questioning of Myra Crosby didn't end with that Facebook post. The court also received an email from someone who wanted to remain anonymous that claimed Crosby had spoken to her husband's tenants about the case. Did you discuss the case with your tenants?
I did not.
What happened then?
Supposedly, there was an email from a coworker of one of my tenants. I believe it was like 10, 11 days after I delivered a refrigerator. My husband has tenants. He had property when I met him, and he still does, but we delivered a refrigerator on a Saturday. And I want to say it was before President's Day because we were going out of town for the weekend. We delivered the refrigerator. The female tenant and I discussed pizza and our new jobs because she had been in a different position than where she was when we had seen each other last. And I was working at a different job than where I was working at before. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, we never discussed the trial. I told her, no, I didn't even tell her. My husband told them that I was a juror so that they wouldn't ask questions, because at the time that trial was the talk of the town. So that my husband let him know quick, she can't discuss that. We were there all of maybe 30 minutes, and we didn't even talk about the trial. We talked about pizza. We talked about our jobs. We talked about family. Had nothing to do with anything at the trial other than food.
So you guys did not talk. You and the tenants did not discuss the evidence or the case. You're telling me that right now.
I did not.
The prosecution team has disputed Myra Crosby's claims in court documents. Transcripts of hearings that were held in Judge Newman's chambers during the trial regarding information the court was receiving about Crosby were included in some of their filings. Judge Newman questioned Crosby, according to the state, asking, so has she discussed the case with any of the jurors, meaning Becky Hill? Has the clerk discussed anything about the case with anyone on that jury? Prosecutors say that Crosby responded, not that I am aware of. Judge Newman and the defense and prosecutors also questioned the tenants about any conversations they had with her when she and her husband delivered a refrigerator to them. The male tenant, according to prosecutors, said she hadn't decided either way because it was, it was kind of early in the case, I guess, that she made no decisions if he was guilty or if he wasn't. The female tenant was also questioned and asked by Murdaugh's lawyer, Dick Harpootlian, about what Crosby said. The female tenant recalled Juror 785 said that she could not, without, a doubt or whatever, say he was guilty.
I can't discuss what's in their transcripts because it's under seal, but I can tell you that I spoke with both tenants afterwards, and they both adamantly said that they told them. I didn't talk about the trial. I only even saw the mail when we got there because him and my husband were taking a refrigerator in and taking a refrigerator out. I pretty much sat with the female and we talked about different things that had changed with us. It didn't have anything to do with the trial.
Judge Newman made the decision to remove Crosby from the jury.
When I got home that day, I talked to my husband and told him that they had dismissed me or whatever. I was a little confused. I spoke with both tenants that day. And when they told me what they said, I was like, well, that doesn't make sense. Then why did the judge say this? I didn't know anything about my ex-husband until 2 weeks after the trial. And I was very angry with him. When he called me, I asked him what was wrong with him. And he was confused. And then he told me that he never posted anything on Facebook. So that just kind of blew my mind. So I kind of felt like, why was I targeted? Is it because I constantly told Becky I was undecided?
Was she asking other jurors about their feelings, or as far as you know, was she only asking you?
I don't know what she asked other jurors. Can I say that I saw her talk to other jurors privately? Yes. But what she was asking them, I can't attest to that because I wasn't with her.
Now, Judge Newman had said that Crosby's ex-husband wasn't a factor in his decision to remove her from the jury, but Justice Toll took an interest in this interaction between Crosby and Becky Hill during the evidentiary hearing last January and questioned Hill about it extensively.
Well, she says in this testimony that she didn't know about the Facebook until Miss Becky told me. Was that incorrect?
I'm not saying...
Some kind of conversation went between the two of her for her to know about that post, correct?
That's true. And I'm thinking that it could have been someone It wasn't me. I just know that it's not me that she talked to about that.
Well, even in her SLED investigation, she admitted that she thought I might vote not guilty based on her conversations with the forelady.
And how do you know that?
I've read it. So that kind of confuses me because I watched the evidentiary hearing. I watched her say that she didn't know who talked to me, but it just was not her. I know who I talked to. I know the officer that I asked to have her come down and talk to me. And she did. It wasn't another clerk staff. It was her.
Myra Crosby has now written a tell-all book with Crime and Cask entitled Because Enough is Enough. She also still has that dozen eggs. You've now written a book. Why have you written this book?
Because I think the courts could have done a lot more. I think when Judge Newman discovered that Becky talked to me privately, he could have looked into that. When she turned in the fake apology post, he could have looked at the dates on that. I think more could have been done, and the courts didn't do what they were supposed to do.
Having sat through the trial, do you believe that Alex Murdaugh was guilty? Do you believe the state met its burden?
I do not. I
So
think they proved. I think that they proved he's a liar, he's a thief, but there wasn't any evidence to prove that he murdered them. You had no murder weapon, you had no motive, you had no witness, you had no confession.
Crosby is also speaking out in a Fox Nation special, The Fall of the House of Murdaugh from Egg to Z, along with another juror, Juror Z, whose name is Mandy Pierce.
So at the evidentiary hearing, 11 of the 12 said that they weren't influenced by Becky Hill. And you testified that you were influenced by her.
Was your verdict influenced in any way by the communications of the clerk of court in this case?
No, ma'am, it was not.
Absolutely not.
No, ma'am. No.
No.
No, ma'am, it was not.
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am, it was not.
No. Yes, ma'am.
How do you feel about that now?
I still feel that way.
Who do you think persuaded you to a guilty verdict?
A little bit of what Becky said, and then also some of the jurors.
Would you put a percentage on that? How much of it was the jurors? How much of it was what Becky said?
It's probably 50-50.
50-50?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The investigation into Becky Hill is ongoing, and as I mentioned earlier, the South Carolina Supreme Court has taken Alex Murdaugh's appeal. And that's it for this episode of Crime Fix. I'm Angenette Levy. Thanks so much for being with me. I'll see you back here next time.